I was late from a business trip, so I chose the train instead of the usual minibus. It was a November evening, and a weekday one at that. And there were surprisingly few people on the train. I got into the 8th car, on one of the empty benches, closer to the window. Face in the direction of traffic. The trip takes about 3.5 hours. I'm not a little boy anymore, so I didn't worry about a long journey, plugged in my headphones and, wrapped in a jacket, began to doze. The measured sound of wheels, warm light. The evening landscape outside the window and the quiet melodies slowly lulled me to sleep. The album that I turned on and listened to consists of 10 songs, an average of 4 minutes each. When I felt it, the 8th song was playing. Half asleep, I recognized the song and opened my eyes a little. The light went from dull yellow to white, like a fluorescent lamp. I did not attach any importance to this and only shivered from the cold that penetrated my collar. As before, I was sitting alone on my bench. There were few fellow travelers, and I noticed that not all of them had been with me since my departure. Some of the passengers who entered with me had gone somewhere. The new fellow travelers didn't seem to attach any importance to the unusual emptiness of the carriage. I rummaged through the player and inserted the next album into the playlist. The album usually lasts about 50 minutes. Wrapping myself in my jacket and relaxing again, I tried to doze off. Then, periodically waking up, I noticed how the frightened passengers got out of the car into the vestibule. Several times I was woken up by the sound of slamming doors, and I noticed the anxious faces of my original fellow travelers running away to the next car. But the music was playing, the jacket was warm, and I fell into a sweet sleep again, until at the end of the last song of the second album, an hour and a half after boarding the train, I woke up. And, no matter how banal it may be, sharply. The drowsiness and shakiness of perception disappeared in 1 second. I was very cold. It was dark outside the window. The light, not warming, but cold, like a draft, illuminated well. And only now, craning my neck like a chicken, I looked around. The first thing I noticed was that among the passengers who were traveling with me, there was not a single original fellow traveler. Only beginners. I easily distinguished them, because the local passengers were dressed as befits residents of a large self-sufficient regional center. The surrounding fellow travelers were clearly boarding at intermediate stops. Both men and women were dressed in dark-colored clothing without any labels or identification marks. Secondly, they were all smiling. Unnatural, not like ordinary people. The smile was strange, unusual. Not like after a good joke or after warm memories somewhere in the mind. No, not even a sly grin. It seemed that the whole car, I counted 11 people, decided to smile for no reason. They just made smiling faces. I shuddered, turned off the player and stared out the window for a few minutes. A remote forest, although villages should sometimes meet on such a busy line. I stared at him for 10 minutes. Nothing. Forest. Deaf. And when was the last stop? I couldn't remember it, and even more so when all those people who were with me now came in. The white light stung my eyes unpleasantly. I wiped away my tears, turned around, and realized I wasn't alone. Across from me, on the edge of the opposite bench, was a smiling guy. That would have been okay, but he was looking me straight in the eye. At first, as a skeptic, I thought it was just another redneck bull who wanted to scare a non-local. I hummed loudly and stared at him, straightening up on the bench. But it didn't help, and soon I was already tensing with fear. The guy wasn't responding to me. He was the same way, unblinking, smiling and staring. I hummed, furrowed my eyebrows menacingly, and winked, but it didn't help. Nothing at all. He stared and smiled. I asked, "What do you want?" The guy looked at me in silence. I looked up and noticed that everyone in the carriage was reaching out to us. Toward me. The crowd of passengers in the dark was getting closer and closer. I couldn't see their movements. Distracted by the fact that the guy was looking at me, I didn't have time to notice the movements. 3 rows behind me sat a woman with glasses. Then 2 rows closer. Then another row closer. I was frightened and wiped away my tears from the bright light again. Shaking the moisture from my eyes, I looked around and screamed. All the dark passengers were sitting around us. And the guy. The guy was smiling wider and wider. I saw his teeth, and I didn't like them. I flinched. They were sharp fangs, and all his teeth were fangs. They were making a perfect bite, one fang after another. All the other passengers surrounded us. Suddenly the controller came through the door opposite and blew his whistle loudly. The companions turned sharply and seemed to narrow their eyes. The controller shouted, "Over here, boy, you in the red jacket. Get up already and run over here." Without thinking, I ran toward him. He was standing in the vestibule, holding the door. The light was blinding my eyes, but I almost groped my way into the vestibule. When I got around him, I was horrified to see the whole company standing behind the sliding doors, and the guy wasn't smiling anymore. He moved his jaw angrily, as if he were chewing on his own teeth. The company behind him looked terribly angry. His eyebrows furrowed and his lips pressed into a hateful smirk. The controller yanked me again and dragged me into the passageway between the cars. Once there, I suddenly felt nauseous, dizzy, and pressure on my temples. "It's okay, calm down. Here, drink some water," my savior said, lifting me up from the floor. I looked around. I was already in another carriage. There were several smokers standing nearby, looking at me in surprise as I got up from the floor. The controller handed me a bottle of water and told me to follow him. I, satisfied that I had been rescued from who knows what, followed him through the wagons. Ordinary people, some kind of crowd, the glare of villages and large cities outside the windows, the warm yellow light. When we reached the beginning of the train, we entered a small room where the controller tried to explain everything to me. "How are you? Sometimes the people we get out of there go crazy," said the controller. I told him, "It's okay. Tell me something about them." Questions, always questions. "Here's tea, drink your tea." After these words, the controller began his story. "I've been working on this line for 5 years, and once every 6 months someone gets sucked in, most often those who fall asleep and don't pay attention to what's going on and to everything around them. Usually people themselves realize that things take a different turn. I don't know why that happens. It just happens that way. When I got here, I thought I was being bullied too, and then I ran into it myself. I was walking along the train, and all of a sudden there was another carriage. Then I almost got pulled inside. And I don't know how I managed to escape. It seemed then that it was possible to save people like you, the forgotten ones. The smart ones leave on their own when they see these fellow travelers. Yes, it is impossible not to notice them when they appear. And this wagon. There's a strange story with it. It seems to be there, and then it's gone. As if it appears out of nowhere. The extra one, the eighth one. And then it disappears with people like you inside. It didn't work out for me last year. There was a young guy, like you, sitting at his laptop. Working or something. Didn't notice when they rounded him up. He's sitting on the same bench as that one, bared his teeth. Right in the crowd. Before I could yell, everything was gone, along with the guy and those people. Ask or don't ask, I don't know what it is. Don't make a fuss, kid, we got enough problems as it is. They show up more often now. That's roughly how the controller's monologue sounded. I listened, but got no more answers, and he didn't know much himself. It turns out that somewhere on the tracks an additional carriage with fellow passengers jumps onto the train, and they don't appear at once, but slowly, as if from nowhere. Gradually, most of the people run over to the next carriage, until the new companions and the victim remain, and then there is a click, and the carriage disappears. Along with the victim. Fear gripped me, but in time I began to look for answers. On my free days, I began to take the train back and forth regularly at the same time. And later, when the first suspicions arose, it turned out that it happens at any time, on all flights. Now listen carefully. Never sleep on a train. Never be distracted by anything. And if the light is turned pale white, if there is a dense forest outside the windows, run away from the carriage. Leave if a smiling stranger sits next to you. Get away from where the people are. They do it every time. Every time. The controller thinks wrong, it happens every time. Often they are left with nothing. But they go out hunting all the time. Always. Someday, too, when you look at the strangely smiling woman sitting next to you, you will feel that something is wrong. Please, running away from the wagon, take those who don't notice with you, save them. I meet with them most of the time. Sometimes I pull someone out on a random pretext, sometimes I have to forcefully pull out those who can't see what's going on, and sometimes I can't get anything done. But I'm tired, I've tried to do something, but nothing works. If you shoot them, everything blinks and the wagon becomes normal. It's very hard to explain why you're standing in the vestibule with a smoking gun in your hand. Prayers don't help, neither does holy water. I'm tired of going back and forth trying to figure out what's wrong. Missing people don't come back, they're just nowhere to be found. I tried to take a picture of the wagon, but it looks normal in the picture. I tried to talk to them, but they just smile. I tried to wait, watching them, but a sweet nap, despite the liters of coffee, nearly killed me. I found myself in a situation similar to the first one again. But this time I managed to escape on my own before they got any closer. I can't go on. I have a job, I should have a personal life, and instead I spend all my free time traveling. I've dug through all the history of trains, lines, places, passengers. Nothing. Not the slightest hint. I just don't know what it is, who it is. And I give up. I'm writing this so you can do something about it. I'm tired. But the scary thing is that they recently had a new addition. I saw a 1-year-old baby in the arms of one of the passengers. He's just learning to smile.